difference. It only emphasized certain things. The preamble to the Constitution summarizes the values and principles on which the Constitution is based. It reflects the vision of the makers of the Constitution. It promises to secure justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, without any kind of exception. It is irrespective of status, caste, creed, religion, or gender. The preamble is the epitome of the fundamental features of the Constitution. And with judicial pronouncements, fundamental features of the Constitution. And with judicial pronouncements are considered to be the basic features of the Constitution, unalterable and unamendable. The basic features of the Constitution, unalterable. Articles 14 to 16 ensure equal gender rights. Articles 14 to 16 principles of state policy ensure equal gender rights. 39. There are directive principles which enjoins upon the state to ensure 39 that men and women have the right to an adequate means of livelihood. The state to ensure that there is men and women have equal right to an adequate means of livelihood. That there is equal pay for equal work. Women constitute for both men and women about 50% of the population. Women constitute, they are the precious daughters, about 50% of the loving wives, the caring mothers, the precious daughters who bring in the loving wives, men and women into this world. The caring mothers, the cherished lovers, the adored sisters, men and women into this world. Some of them work for remuneration, the cherished lovers, the adored sisters. However, some of them work for remuneration. The different roles that women have in society. However, it is often forgotten that women are also individuals have in society with the same feelings. It is often forgotten and aspirations that women are also individuals. With the same due process of law, hopes, Lord Denning wrote, aspirations. A woman feels as keenly, thinks as clearly as a man. Process of law. She in her sphere, Lord Denning does work as useful as a man does in his. Thinks as clearly as a man. She has as much right to her freedom. She in her sphere does work to develop her personality to the full in his. As a man. She has as much right to her freedom. She does not become the husband's servant to develop her personality to the full. If his work is more important in the life of the community, she does not become the more important servant in the life of the family partner. Of course, if his work is more important in the life of the community, is more important to society, in the life of the family, and not just of the family alone. We have empowered women whose role neither can do without the other to society. Neither is above the other or under the other. They are equal. Neither can do without the other. Swami Vivekananda above the other or just as a bird cannot fly, they are equal. With one wing. Nearer home, the nation cannot march forward. Swami Vivekananda women are left behind. Just as a bird cannot fly. When 50%, almost 50% of the population march forward, are left behind. Look at the intellectual resources, almost 50% of the population to the nation are left behind. The country. Look at the right to equality irrespective of gender, which is a basic human right, reaffirmed, reiterated in the Universal Declaration of Rights. The right to equality irrespective of gender, United Nations, is a basic human right. 1948. reaffirmed, reiterated in the Universal Declaration of Rights, to Articles 1, adopted by the United Nations on 10th Article December 1, which says all human beings are born free, particular and are equal in dignity and made to Articles 1, 2 and 7. They are endowed with reason and conscience, all human beings are born towards one another and are equal in a spirit of brotherhood and rights. Article 2. They are endowed with entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in the Declaration in a spirit of without distinction of any kind. Article 2, such as race, color, everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in the Declaration without distinction of any kind. All are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination, etc. To equal protection of the law. Article 7, what? All are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination enjoins to equal protection of the law. This Article is 21. Article 14 is an article which has been interpreted, and then it's a glaring 21 instance is an article of transformative constitutionalism interpreted, which gives a glaring effect instance to the Constitution of transformative constitutionalism, a provision which merely read, which gives that no person shall be deprived of his life or liberty, a provision except according to procedure established by law, that no person was in the case of deprived of his life or liberty in the early 1950s, except according to procedure established by law, considered which was as a safeguard against arbitrary executive in the early 1950s, 1950 or 51, received a much wider interpretation as a safeguard against arbitrary executive. The interpretation itself received a much wider interpretation in the case of Maneka Gandhi. Today, the interpretation almost all the fundamental rights have been held to be included in Article 21. Almost all the fundamental rights has been interpreted to mean have been not held the right included in Article to live a mere existence, because the right to live but an existence has been interpreted of dignity, which takes on to hold the right, fundamental right to live a mere and of course we will throw open the discussions just now of dignity, which many of the women's rights, fundamental rights, have been expressed. And of course we will throw open the discussions just now in many of the women's rights conferred under Article 21, interpreted to be included the right of a woman to the right to life, conferred the right against 21, sexual abuse and exploitation, the right of a woman to her dignity, right to speedy trial, her right against sexual abuse and exploitation, fairness generally, right to speedy trial. There have been a series of international covenants, fairness generally. I will not refer to them in very great details now. There have been a series of international covenants. Gender discrimination, I will not refer to them in very great details, confined now to the third world countries. It shows it is not confined to our country, gender discrimination, but it is actually a universal confined phenomena to the third world countries. And it is not attending a conference on access to justice. Actually, I was quite surprised phenomenon to hear the experiences of some of the women attending a conference on access to justice, like the United States of America. I was quite surprised and to hear the experiences of some of the women of developed countries today, like the United States of America and Canada, headed by a woman. The President of India, we are at least, is a woman, and a tribal woman by a woman. It's a great achievement. The President of India, and she is not the first woman, is a woman. She is the second woman. And United States of America It's a great achievement.
Is yet to have.
And she is
a
not the
woman as
first woman.
president.
She's the second woman.
Of course, till
United
today,
States of
we have not had a Chief Justice of
is
India
yet to
who has
have
been a woman.
but
But thankfully, hopefully,
of course,
we
till
will have
today,
one
we have not had a
in
Chief Justice of
1927.
India who has been a woman. But
United States
thankfully,
is yet
hopefully,
to have
we will have
a
one
Chief Justice of India who has been
in
a woman.
1927.
But then,
United States is yet
unfortunately,
to have a
with
Chief Justice of India who
all
has
the
been a woman.
protection,
But
with
then,
Article 16, Article
unfortunately,
15, Article 16, read with Article 14,
all
which
the
have
protection
perhaps given such
with
women,
Article 16,
women some
Article 15, Article 16,
equality in
read with Article
the realm of
14,
public appointment.
which have perhaps given
Maybe it is
such
because of
women,
these provisions
women
that
some
all of us
equality in the realm of public
reached
appointment.
the places that we did.
Maybe it is because of these
But
provisions that all of us
why is it that
reached
when my
the places that we did?
CV used to be read out
But
when I was the Chief Justice of Madras High Court,
Why is it
people would say she's the
that
second
when
woman
my
to be appointed
CV
Chief
used to be
Justice
read out when I was the Chief Justice of Madras High Court? People would
How
say
long
she's the
had that
second woman
High Court been in existence?
to be appointed Chief Justice.
It was established in the
Of
year
Madras High
1862.
How
And
long
in
had that
2017,
High Court been in existence?
which is
It was established in the
67
year
years
1862. And in
after the Constitution
2017,
came into force,
which is
that I was only the
67
second
years
woman to be Chief Justice of India.
after the
Sorry,
Constitution
Chief
came into
Justice of
force,
Madras High Court. And there had
I
been
was
one
only the
lady
second
who had been Chief
woman
Justice
to
for
be
a few
Chief
months in
Justice of India.
1992, which was
Chief Justice of Madras High Court. And there had been one lady
I was
who had been Chief
absolutely
Justice for a few months
thrilled
in 1992.
at the time of my
Kamsa
appointment
Padmanabhan.
as Chief Justice of Madras High Court, because the newspapers
I was
carried the news.
Absolutely
Item
thrilled at the time of my appointment
Bombay High Court was headed
as
by
Chief Justice of Madras
Manju
High Court,
Naikallur,
because
Delhi
the
High Court
newspapers
was headed
carried the news
by Chief Justice
Item.
Rohini,
that
Bombay
Madras
High
High Court
Court
was headed by Justice
was headed by a
Manju
woman.
Naikallur. Delhi High
Calcutta
Court
High
was
Court was
headed
also headed
by Chief Justice
by a
Rohini.
woman, Justice Nishita Matre.
Madras High Court
Chief Justice of Calcutta High
was
Court.
headed by a woman.
But then what happened after?
Calcutta High Court was also headed by
Today,
a woman, Justice Nishita
there are so
Matre,
many high
was
courts.
the acting Chief Justice of
But
Calcutta High Court.
we have only
But
one
then what happened after?
woman Chief Justice, and there is
Today,
another woman who is
There are so many high courts,
probably expected to become
but
Chief
we have
Justice
only
very
one
soon.
woman Chief Justice, and
The number in
There
the
is
Supreme
another
Court has
woman who is
dwindled to 3 from 4.
probably expected to become Chief Justice very
I was
soon.
only the 8th woman.
The number in the Supreme
After how
Court
many
has
years?
dwindled to 3 from
This
4.
was in 2018.
I was only the 8th woman.
Why? And
After
so
how
far,
many years?
there have been
This was
only
in
11 women.
2018.
How many men? What is the reason for this?
And so far,
How do
there
you
have been
change the
only 11
situation?
women. How many men?
Is it
What
because
is the
of the
reason for it?
stereotyping of the
How do
roles
you
of men and
change
women
the
in
situation?
society? Is it
Is it
because
because
men and women
stereotyping
alike are
the roles of
conditioned
men
to
and women in
believe
society?
that the primary place
Is
of the
it
woman is in the
because
home?
men and women alike
Is it
are
because
conditioned to believe that the primary
women
place of
are
the woman is in
expected
the
to
home?
behave in a certain way?
Is it because
I am not against virtues. I am
Women
not against values.
are expected to behave in
These
a
are good
certain way?
qualities. But
I
not
am
to be
not
enforced
against
only
virtues.
against women.
I am not against
Courtesy is a good
values.
quality.
These are
But
good
both men
qualities,
and women have to be courtesy.
but not to be enforced only against women. It
Leprosy
is
is a good
not
quality.
wrong
But both men
to
and
sit
women
together to
should be
eat.
courteous.
But then the men in the family have to be a little
It
considerate
is not wrong
about the women.
to sit together
Yes.
to eat.
Sometimes they
But
get,
then the
they
men
may get delayed for
The
genuine
family have to
reasons.
be a little considerate.
But the situation
women.
should not be in a family.
Yes.
Sometimes
They may get delayed for genuine
a woman in
reasons.
the family way
But
should be compelled
the
to wait
situation should not be in a
without
family.
food till
That
late in the
woman
afternoon
in the family way
when the men should be
should be
playing
compelled
cards
to wait without food
totally oblivious
till
of
late in the afternoon
family needs
when
and
the men should
requirements.
be playing cards. Totally oblivious of family
One of
needs
the
and
major
requirements.
international covenants is the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women,
One of the major
1979.
international covenants
popularly known as CEDAW,
is the Convention on the
and the
Elimination
Vienna
of All
Convention
Forms of
on the Elimination of
Discrimination
Violence
Against Women,
Against Women, 1973.
popularly known as CEDAW,
These international
and the Vienna
instruments
Convention on the Elimination of Violence
recognize,
Against
amongst others,
Women,
the right of women to
1993.
equality, the right against
These
discrimination,
international instruments
the right to economic parity,
recognize, amongst
The
others,
right to
the right
property,
of women to equality,
the right to privacy,
The right
which has
against
now been declared
discrimination,
to be a fundamental right,
the
in
right to
Kutusami
economic
case.
parity, the right to property,
the right against
to
domestic
privacy, which
violence,
has now been declared to
the
be a
right against
fundamental
sexual
right in the
abuse
Kutusami
and
case.
violence, and the right against sexual harassment at the workplace,
The right against
as
domestic
basic
violence,
human rights.
the right against sexual abuse and
Now,
violence,
these conventions have
and
been
the right
followed
against sexual
by a
harassment
spate
at the
of
workplace
conventions, conferences,
as basic
etc.,
human
to
rights.
assess the extent of their implementation.
Now, these conventions have been followed by a spate of conventions,
In the case of
conferences,
Vishakha
etc., to
versus
assess
state of
the extent
Rajasthan,
of their implementation. And
which is a landmark decision. The
in
Supreme
the
Court
case of
applied
Vishakha versus state of
the
Rajasthan,
terms of the CEDAW.
which is a landmark decision.
The Supreme Court held
The Supreme Court
that
applied
the state
terms
was
of
bound
the
to
CEDAW.
implement the provisions of
Supreme Court
foreign
held
conventions
that
to which India was signatory,
the state was bound to implement
unless any term and
the
condition was
provisions of
directly
foreign
contrary
conventions
to a
to
municipal
which
law.
India was signatory.
So when the law is silent,
Unless
the
any term and
provisions have to
condition
be
was
implemented
directly contrary
to
to a
bring about
municipal law.
gender
So
equality.
when the law is silent, the provisions have to be implemented.
Article 2 of CEDAW
bring about
exhorts state
gender
parties
equality.
to condemn discrimination against women in all its forms and manifestations.
Article 2 of CEDAW
and to ensure
exhorts
adoption of
state
gender
parties
equal laws
to condemn
and
discrimination
women-friendly legal
against women
system, policies
in
and
all its
practices.
forms and manifestations.
It
And
outlines
to
the
ensure
steps
adoption of
that
gender
states should
equal
take
laws
to
and
eliminate
women-friendly legal
discrimination by
system,
any person,
policies and practices.
organization, enterprise,
It outlines the
institution,
steps
whether
that
public or
states should
private.
take to eliminate
It also
discrimination by any
requires the
person,
states
organization,
to modify, amend,
enterprise,
abolish or repeal
institution, whether
such
public or
laws
private.
which are discriminatory
It
against
also
women,
requires the states
be it civil,
to modify,
criminal,
amend, abolish
or
or
any other
repeal
branch of law.
such laws which are discriminatory against women,
As
civil,
chairperson
criminal,
of the
or
Calcutta
any
High
other
Court
branch of law.
Legal Services Committee for several years, and later chairperson, executive chairperson of the
Chairperson of the
Delhi
Calcutta
State
High
Legal
Court
Services Authority.
Legal Services Committee for several
When
years.
I was the senior
And
most judge
later
of Delhi High Court.
chairperson, executive
Patron in
chairperson of
chief.
the Delhi State
When I was Chief
Legal
Justice of
Services
Madras
Authority.
High Court,
When I was the
I had
senior most judge
occasion
of Delhi High Court. Patron in
to
chief. When I was Chief Justice of Madras High
interact
Court.
with
I had occasion to
women
interact
from different strata of society.
women from different
And
strata of society.
it was observed by
And
this various articles of CEDAW
was found as
that the main obstacle
observed
by equality was in
various
stereotyping
articles of CEDAW,
and in mindset.
that the main obstacle
There was
to equality
this mindset was apparent and in mindset with various organs of the state.
this mindset
There were a
was
lot of
apparent
complaints about
Even
women approaching
with various
the police with
organs of the
complaints.
state.
So if
There were a lot
we
of
need true
complaints about women
Uh,
approaching.
if
police with
we want true equality, we have to
So
sensitize
if we need true
our police, not just
if
the
we
high level
want
officers,
true equality,
but
we have to
at the station
sensitize
house level, who
Our-
actually deal with police complaints.
not just the high
They
level
need to
officers,
be gender sensitive.
but at the
they need
station
to
house
be
level,
Gender
who
friendly.
actually deal with,
And it is only then that women
they
will be
need
able
to
to
be gender
come to
sensitive.
them with a free mind.
They need to be
With
gender friendly.
their
And it is
problems.
only then that
They will
women
be free to
able
lodge a complaint,
come to them with a
but
free
not
mind.
if the attitude is, what are you
Their
doing here? You should
problems.
be in the kitchen.
They will be free to lodge a complaint, but not
Of course,
if the attitude is
I'm not
what are
trying
you
to
doing
suggest
here?
that
You
it
should be
is
in the
wrong
kitchen.
to go to the kitchen or it is wrong to cook. We all need
Of
to
course,
eat and we need to go to kitchen.
Trying to suggest that it is
But
wrong to go to the kitchen or
A
it is
woman
wrong to cook.
alone should not be compelled
We all need
to
to
do the
eat
kitchen work.
and we need to go to kitchen.
That is the intent.
A woman alone should not be compelled to do the kitchen work.
That is the intent. Justice Leela Seth, the first Indian woman to be appointed Chief Justice of a High Court, had once lamented, "Women are half the world
Justice
and hold
Leela
half the
Seth,
sky."
the first Indian
But
woman
where
to
are
be
they when
appointed
it
Chief
comes to
Justice of a
equality?
High Court, had once lamented, "Women are half the world and hold half the sky." But where are they when it comes to equality?
So what exactly is gender empowerment? What do we mean by the expression empowerment?
So what exactly
What is the
is
dictionary
gender
meaning?
empowerment?
It means to infuse power.
What do we mean
Therefore,
by the
infuse
expression
power
empowerment?
to do what?
What is the
Shoot
dictionary
all the men.
meaning? It means to infuse power.
Bump them off.
Therefore, infuse
Certainly
power
not.
to do what?
That
Shoot
is
all
not
the
the
men.
object of gender empowerment.
Bump them off?
Empowerment,
Certainly not.
to my mind, means
That is not the object of
infusing
gender
power
empowerment.
to decide
Empowerment,
what to do
to my mind,
within the four corners
means
of law
infusing
without
power
being forced
to decide
from anywhere
what to
else.
do within the four corners of law
It means
without being forced
economic empowerment.
from
It
anywhere
is
else.
not necessary that every woman must
It means
work.
economic empowerment.
My mother did not work.
It is not necessary
But she encouraged
that
me
every woman must
to be
work.
what I became.
My mother did not
She
work,
taught me
but she
when I was at
encouraged
school.
me to be what I became.
What is important is
She taught me
the right of a woman
when I was at school
to freely choose whether she wants
what
to
is
work
important is
or whether she does not want to work.
the right of a woman
If
to freely
there is no
choose
economic requirement,
whether she wants to work
she may choose
or
not
whether
to
she
work.
does not want to work. If
It is
there
very
is no
common abroad,
economic requirement,
and
she may choose
maybe
not
it is
to work.
happening in India also, that sometimes when couples decide
It is
on a
very
family,
common abroad.
and one of them,
Maybe it is happening in
or
India
maybe
also,
it could be both,
that
it could be
sometimes
one
when
of them
couples
making some
decide on a family,
sacrifices in
one of them,
the career,
or maybe
to give
it could be
some
both.
time.
It could
to
be
the
one
family,
of
to
them
the
making
children.
some sacrifices.
But it is not necessarily the woman who is compelled to
Sometime
give up her job,
To the family, to
or
the
the
children.
woman who is compelled to make the sacrifices.
It is not necessary,
Often,
necessarily,
The
the woman
partner
who is compelled to give up
who
her
has a
job,
better job,
or the
who has
woman
a
who is
prominent
compelled
job,
to make the sacrifice.
retains the job.
Often, the
So
partner
here again it is
who
very
has a better
important
job,
to
who has a
sensitize
permanent
people.
job, retains
But
the job.
it is not men alone, sometimes
So
it's
here
even the
again
women.
it is very important
They have
to
the mindset
sensitize
that,
people.
you know, if a woman is working,
It is
then
not men alone, sometimes it's
the
even
man
the
should
women.
have a job which is equally
They
important
have the mindset that,
or which is more important.
you know, if a woman is
So
working,
that-
then the man
that
should have a
mindset
job which is equally important
must and has to
or
change.
which is more important. So that mindset
To achieve gender
must
equality,
and has to change.
we need to mainstream gender. As per its
To
ordinary
achieve gender
meaning,
equality,
mainstream connotes
we need to mainstream
ideas and opinions which are considered
Gender.
normal. Mainstream. As per its
ordinary
ordinary
meaning,
gender, the concept
mainstream
of gender
connotes
equality
ideas and opinions
should
which
be
are
a very
considered normal.
normal
Mainstream.
thing. Central
Gender,
to
the
life.
concept of gender equality
And not discussed
Should
in
be a
occasional
very
colloquiums
normal
of this
thing.
kind and
Central
later forgotten.
to life.
And
Not
gender
discussed
mainstream
in
streaming is a
occasional
concerted effort
Colloquiums of this kind
through legislation
and later forgotten.
policy decisions, framing
Gender
of
mainstream
rules,
streaming is a concerted
framing
effort
of policies in
through
different
legislation,
areas, and also
policy
requires
decisions,
addressing the issue
framing of rules,
of representation of
framing
all
of policies
genders
in different areas,
in the area of those.
and also
policies.
requires addressing the issue of representation of all
It
genders
means representation
in the area of those
of women.
policies.
And I would say also the representation of the third gender
It means representation
in decision-making
of
processes.
women. And I would say also the
Statistics
representation of
reveal
the third gender
that most of the women work in the unorganized
in decision-making processes.
They are usually less paid. They
Statistics
have
reveal
less important jobs.
that most of the women work in the unorganized
So,
sector. They are
policy
usually less paid,
should be
they
turned
have
towards
less important jobs.
representation of women in decision-making processes.
Policy should be turned
Women in
towards
decision-making positions can make a
representation
difference,
of women
as
in
those women can
decision-making
bring about
processes.
change. In corporate bodies with women at the
Women
top,
in
heading
decision-making
human
positions can
resources,
make a difference,
it is seen that more
as
women
those women can bring
are
about
appointed.
change. In corporate bodies,
the concept
with women
of
at the
gender
top,
mainstreaming
heading human
was
resources
first enunciated at the
is seen
Third
that
World
more women
Conference on Women
are appointed.
held at Nairobi in 1985.
The concept of
The
gender
idea
mainstreaming
formally
was
featured
first
in
enunciated at the Third
1995
World Conference on
at the
Women
Fourth World
held at
Conference
Nairobi in
on Women
1985. The idea
and
formally
was cited in the
featured
Beijing Platform
in
for Action.
1995 at the Fourth World Conference
Gender mainstreaming has formally been defined by the UN
and was cited
Economic
in the
and
Beijing
Social
Platform
Council
for Action.
as a concept. Mainstreaming a gender
Mainstreaming has
perspective
formally been
is the
defined by
process
the
of
UN
assessing the
Economic and
implications
Social Council.
for women
as a concept.
and men
Mainstreaming
any
a
planned
gender
action.
perspective
complete equality
is the process
And
of
I would
assessing
say
the implications
men,
for
women
and men
the
of
third
any
gender.
planned action.
How do you do it?
Complete equality.
You have to educate
And I would say
people belonging to the third gender.
men, women, and the
You have to
third
encourage them
gender. How do you
to
do
achieve
it?
equality.
You have to educate
You have to
people belonging to the
economically
third gender.
empower them.
You have
See
to
that they get
encourage them
jobs.
to
See that they
achieve
can become
equality.
financially.
You have to
independent.
economically
It is a
empower them.
disgrace.
See that they
That
get jobs.
People belonging to
See
the
that they
third
can become
gender
financially.
should be resorting to
independent.
extortionist tactics.
It is a disgrace
to take money when a child
people
is
belonging
born.
to the third gender
This will not
should be
happen
resorting to extortionist
if they are made
tactics to
economically
take money
independent.
when a child is born.
To give you an
This will
example,
not happen
I belong to the state of
if
West
they are
Bengal.
made economically independent.
There was a point of time, to give you
There
an
used to be a
example,
lot of
I belong to
burglaries
the
and
state of West
robberies
Bengal in that neck
and
which connected
there was a
South
point
Bengal
of
to
time
North Bengal,
that there used to be a lot of
particularly
burglaries
after
and robberies
Raigad in the
in that
Dalkola
neck
area.
which connected South
Much
Bengal to
later
North
on,
Bengal.
when I was an inspecting
Particularly
judge of
after
Raigad,
Raigad in the Dalkola.
I was asking the
Much
driver
later on,
of the car which had been provided
when
to
I
me,
was an
to
inspecting
whether
judge
you
of
had
Raigad,
you still had burglaries. And I was told no.
of the car which
I
had
was
been
told
provided to
that
me, as to whether you had
people from the neighboring states
you still had burglaries.
used to come,
And I was told no.
do burglary,
I was told
and then go away
people
outside
from
the
the neighboring
jurisdiction.
states
So it was
used
very
to come.
difficult to catch them. But those who
burgle and
used to burgle, go away, had been provided with jobs.
outside the jurisdiction.
So they
So it was
did
very
not
difficult
need
to catch them.
to burgle.
But those who used to burgle or had been provided with jobs,
I would like
they
to
would
draw the
did not
attention
need to
of
burgle.
all the high-ranking government officials here.
Perhaps
I have noticed one
like
thing.
to draw the attention
Almost a
of all
decade
the high-ranking government
after
officials
the
here.
Nalsa judgment,
I have noticed
if you
one
go
thing.
to the airport, you will find washrooms
Almost a decade
for men.
after the Nalsa
You
judgment,
will find washrooms for women.
if you go to the airport,
In the newer
you will find
airports,
washrooms.
you may also find a
For
separate
men.
washroom for the
You will
disabled.
find washrooms for women.
But nobody thinks
In the newer
of the third
airports,
gender.
you may also
So it is
find a
time
separate washroom for the
That you
disabled.
have some washrooms which are common.
But nobody thinks.
Otherwise, think
Of
of
the
think
third
of the
gender.
plight of the third gender.
So it is time that you have some
So just as
washrooms which are common.
you should have
Otherwise,
disabled
think of the plight of the
friendly
third
building
gender.
complexes with ramps, lifts.
So just as
you should
you
also
should have
ensure that there are
disabled friendly building
facilities
complexes with
for the
ramps,
third gender,
apart
from
from
the various
you
factors.
should also ensure
Very
that
often,
there are
we have to fill in forms.
facilities for the third gender.
How many of
apart
them
from the various
have the third
factors?
gender?
Very
female,
often,
male,
we have to fill in
female,
forms.
male. Which one has to?
How many of
Fill
them?
in. So these are areas
Female, male.
which need to be
Female,
looked into. Male. Which one has to?
fill in. So
There have
these
been
are
landmark decisions
areas
in Vishakha.
need to be looked into.
The Supreme Court, there have been landmark decisions in
Vishakha.
conceived the idea of the prevention of sexual harassment, Supreme Court of women. And women could be sexually harassed even without touching
Conceived
them.
the idea of prevention
Today,
of
of course,
sexual harassment.
We have the Prevention of Sexual Harassment
And
Act of
women could be
2013.
sexually harassed
which
even
has
without
followed.
touching them. Today,
We
of
refer
course,
to
we have the
women's
prevention of sexual
rights in
harassment Act of
Bodhisattva
2013,
Gautam versus Shubhra
which has
Chakraborty.
followed.
The Supreme Court observed that rape
We
was
refer
not
to
merely an offence
Women's
under the criminal law,
rights in
but it was a
Bodhisattva Gautam
violation of
versus
the
Shubhra
fundamental
Chakraborty.
right of a woman.
The Supreme
to
Court
life and
observed that
liberty
rape was not merely an offence
under Article 21.
under the criminal law.
In
But
Chairman
it was a
Railway Board and
violation of
others
the
versus
fundamental
Chandrima
right
Das,
of a woman
the Supreme
to
Court
life and
awarded
liberty.
compensation to a
Under
foreign
Article
woman
21.
who had been raped
In
the
Chairman Railway
premises.
Board and others versus Chandrima Das, the Supreme Court
In
awarded
Delhi
compensation
Domestic Working Women's
foreign
Forum,
woman
the Supreme
who had
Court
been
suggested
raped
awarding
in
of
railway
compensation to rape victims at the time of conviction.
in Delhi
of the
Domestic
accused guilty
Working
of
Women's
rape.
Forum. The
Of
Supreme
course,
Court suggested awarding of compensation
these are
to rape
steps
victims
which have
at the
to be
time of
taken by the
conviction.
judiciary also.
of the accused guilty of
But
rape.
the
Of
judiciary
course,
doesn't have the money. The money really
These are steps which have to be
comes
taken by the
from
judiciary
the
also.
executive. So, but maybe the
Judiciary
national
doesn't
legal
have the money.
They are funded.
The money
They are
really
funded. National legal authorities,
from the
state
executive.
legal services authorities are funded.
Maybe
But they
the
should
national
be-
legal they are funded.
They should not be
National
denuded
legal authorities,
of funds.
state legal services authorities are funded, but they should be
This
they
another
should not be
important
denuded
area before I just end. The constitutional status of religious
another important
personal
area
laws
before I just
which relate to marriage, divorce, adoption,
the constitutional
succession, etc.
status of religious
perpetuate
personal
gender
laws
inequality.
which relate to marriage, divorce,
The competing and
adoption,
conflicting principles
succession, etc.
of religious freedom of citizens
perpetuate gender
and
inequality.
gender equality for women
The competing
poses
and
a major
conflicting
challenge to the
principles
justice delivery
of
system,
religious freedom of
not
citizens
only in India but in
and
many
gender
other parts
equality
of the world as
for
well.
women poses a major challenge to the justice
What is to
delivery
be done
system. Not only
If
in
the
India, but in
religious
many other
communities do
parts
not
of the world
reform
as
their
well.
personal laws and their religious rights
What is
and
to be done
customs,
if the
issue will
religious
have to be
communities do
addressed
not reform their personal
by the
laws
various authorities,
and their religious rights
including
and
the judiciary,
customs,
which
issue
has
will
intervened.
have to be addressed by the various
I am
authorities,
very
including the
sorry to
judiciary,
make certain comments.
which has
I
intervened.
start off with a caveat. I am completely
very
apolitical.
Sorry
I am
to make
completely
certain
neutral.
comments. I
I
start off with a caveat.
Criticize
I am completely
policies. I
apolitical.
support policies,
I am completely
not
neutral.
parties or party colors.
I
In the
criticize
Shabano case,
policies. I
the
support
Supreme Court
policies,
held
not
that the
parties or
beneficial
party
provision
colours.
of
In the
Section
Shabano case,
125 of the Criminal
the
Procedure
Supreme
Code
Court held
would apply
that the
to this
beneficial
Muslim women as
provision
well.
of
Unfortunately,
Section 125 of the Criminal
under pressure
Procedure
from
Code would apply
a
to Muslim women as well.
conservative section, I would say,
Unfortunately,
of the Muslim
under pressure
population,
from a
the
conservative
Muslim
section,
women's
I would say,
protection of rights on Divorce Act of
the
1986
Muslim population,
was passed, which gives
Muslim women's
a
protection
Muslim woman
of
practically
rights on
nothing.
Divorce Act of 1986 was passed.
Those of you
Which
who
gives
have read history
a Muslim
will
woman
know
practically nothing.
that there were protests in 1833
Those of you
when
who have
sati
read history
was abolished.
will know
But it was done
that there were protests
by reformers like
in
Ram Mohan Roy
1833
along with
when sati
Lord Bentinck.
was abolished. But it was done
when widow
by
remarriage
reformers like Ram Mohan Roy
was introduced,
along with
child marriage
Lord
stopped.
Bentinck.
There were protections, there were protests
When widow
from the
remarriage
conservative
was introduced,
section of the Hindus.
child marriage stopped. There were
In
protections,
1955,
there were
when
protests
the Hindu Marriage Act
from the
was passed,
conservative
giving the right of
section
divorce
of the Hindus.
to women.
In
There was
1955, when the Hindu
So
Marriage
I
Act
feel
was passed,
sometimes
giving the right of
it
divorce
is necessary to take
strong
to
steps.
women.
There was
In the
criticism.
case of Chayara Banu,
So I feel
a bench of the
sometimes
Supreme Court presided over
it
by
is necessary to
Justice
take
Rohinton Nariman
strong steps.
set aside
In the case of Chayara
the
Banu,
practice of triple talaq.
a bench of the Supreme
And what
Court
followed
presided
was
over
the
by
enactment
Justice Rohinton Nariman
of law
set aside
which declared triple
the practice of triple
talaq
talaq.
illegal.
And what followed was the
I
enactment
also think
of law
that the directive
which
policy
declared triple talaq
under
illegal.
Article 44 of the
I also
Constitution of
think
India
that
to
the directive policy
introduce a
under
uniform
Article
civil
44
procedure
of the
code
Constitution of India
is necessary for women's equality.
introduce a
It is
uniform
unfortunate
civil procedure
that
code
people accept
is necessary for
that
women's
it is part and
equality.
parcel of Article 14.
It is unfortunate
Article 14 of
that
the
people
Constitution.
accept
But then
that
they
it
say,
is part and parcel
leave it alone
of Article
for the sake
14.
of peace.
Article 14 of the Constitution.
But
But then
I
they
have
say,
seen nowadays,
leave it alone for the
I
sake
do
of peace.
arbitrations after my retirement.
But
There are
I have
so
seen
many
nowadays,
young
I do arbitrations.
Muslim girls who appear
After my
before me,
retirement.
they are so competent.
There are
They are so liberated.
so many young
We have to
Muslim
remember one
girls
thing.
who appear before me, they are
That
so competent.
This struggle
They are so liberated.
to achieve equality
We have to remember one
is
thing,
not
that
this just struggle. It's not a struggle
achieve
against men at all, equality, but
is
it
not
is a fight against retrogressive
it's not a struggle against men at all,
ideas, but
which is
have
a
to be
fight against
changed.
retrogressive
Our
ideas,
constitution was adopted
which have to be
74 years ago. It is entering
Our
its 75th year
constitution was adopted
of glorious existence. 74 years ago.
The constitution cannot
It
remain
is entering its 75th year
The
of
constitution
glorious
has to evolve.
existence.
That is what the constitution makers
The
themselves
constitution
said. cannot
Justice
remain
B.R.
static.
B.R. Ambedkar. Sorry,
The constitution has to
B.R.
evolve.
B.R. Ambedkar.
That
Dr.
is what
Rajendra
the
Prasad
constitution makers themselves said.
in their
B.R.
speeches
B.R.
in the
Ambedkar.
Constituent
Sorry,
Assembly.
B.R. Ambedkar.
Now, how does a
Dr.
constitution
Rajendra
evolve?
Prasad.
One
their
method
speeches
is through
in the
judicial
Constituent.
interpretation. As we have seen,
Now, how
the
does the
interpretation
constitution
of
evolve?
right to privacy as a fundamental right,
One method
the
is through judicial
wide
interpretation,
interpretation of the right to life,
as we have seen.
so on and so
The
forth.
interpretation of right to
The other
privacy
is
as a
executive
fundamental
policy.
right. the
how
wide
the
interpretation of the right
executive
to
is
life,
implementing the
so on
fundamental
and so
rights
forth.
under the Constitution
The other
of
is
India,
executive policy,
and
how
of
the
course
executive is implementing
amendment
the fundamental rights
of Constitution
under the Constitution of India,
the Constitution,
and of course
within
amendments
the power of the Constitution
of constitutions
to amend.
Constitution of the Constitution within the power of the Constitution to amend. So I find from the concept note the slogan reform. So I find
Perform.
from the concept note
and
the slogan.
transform. So
Reform.
perhaps this slogan
Perform
of reform
and
needs a
transform.
change, reformation of ideas in the
perhaps this
context
slogan
of gender equality.
Of
Perform is
reform
act,
needs a change,
whether it is the
reformation
legislature
of ideas in
or
the
the
context
executive
of gender equality.
or the judiciary,
Perform is act,
and not to leave out the people,
whether it is the legislature
society,
or the
because
executive
much of the injustices
or
done
the
by
judiciary,
society,
and
much
not to leave out the
justice is also
people,
done by
society, because much of the
So,
injustice is done by
today's
society,
colloquium
and much
evinces
justice is also
commitment
done by
of
society.
the Ministry of Law, who is organizing this,
Today's colloquium
to
evinces
transformative constitutionalism.
commitment
I
of
wish all of you a
Ministry of
very
Law
happy
who is organizing
Constitution Day.
this, and
I
transformative
sincerely hope and pray
constitutionalism.
that our
Wish all of
Constitution
you a very happy
evolves,
Constitution Day,
survives,
and I
and is
sincerely
given
hope
true
and
meaning
pray
by all
that
the organs of the
our
legislature.
Constitution evolves,
Now should we
survives,
throw it open? I think I've spoken
and
a
is
little
given
too much
true meaning
by
all the organs of the legislature.
Sir,
Yes. Now should
we have with us
throw it open? I think I've spoken
one
a
more
little too
officer,
much.
distinguished guest, Sri Pritam B. Yaswant, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Women and Child Development. We welcome you, sir, on this occasion. Officer, thank you. Distinguished guest, Sri Pritam B. Yaswant, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Women and Child Development. We welcome you, sir, on this occasion. Thank you.
With due respect to all the members present here, addressing the concerns, the chairman, as a chairperson of this body, have addressed the concerns of the women empowerment and all. I have the pride of declaring something in this forum, madam. I was the director of prosecution
of the women empowerment and all.
as a country.
I have the pride of declaring
recently
something in
till
this
August
forum, madam.
18th, and it is
I
an
was,
unprecedented way. I have handled the
director
work
of
of the
prosecution
Central Bureau of Investigation,
as a
where it
country's
resulted in
head
75% of
till August
conviction
18th.
rate. It is a
And
worldwide
it is an
record, madam.
unprecedented way.
And
I have handled the
the
work of
empowerment
the
given
Central
while
Bureau of
holding that role has
Investigation,
made
where
me
it
to
resulted in
perform
75%
that
of
role very
conviction rate.
independently
It is a
and
worldwide record,
impartially.
madam. And
That is
the
one opportunity
empowerment
which I
given
had as
while
a
holding
woman,
that role
and
has made me
it's
to
truly an
perform
empowerment.
that role
And the
very
other thing, before that
independently
position,
and
I was also
impartially.
the first
That
woman
is
of
one
the
opportunity
country
which
to
I
head
had
the
as a
paramilitary
woman,
force
and,
of
it's
Indo-Tibetan
truly an
Border Police
empowerment.
Force as their
And the
judge
other
attorney
thing, before
general.
that position,
All
I was
these
also
things
the
I have
first
performed
woman of
more
the
than the
country
tenure
to
period.
head the
That is
paramilitary
for 4
force
full
of
years.
Indo-Tibetan
I
Border
wish
Police
that all
Force
women
as
have
their
to
judge
play
attorney
such roles
general.
apart from
All
the
these things I have
higher
performed
positions
more
the
than the
madam has
tenure
handled and the
period.
other
That is for
persons
4
who
full
are
years.
sitting as
I
dignitaries
wish
on
that
this,
all
for
women
this
have
panel.
to play such roles
So,
apart from
this
the
is what I want to
higher
share with the
positions
audience.
the
Position, not
madam
a high
has handled
position.
and the other persons
Yes, madam.
who are sitting as dignitaries
I
on
was
this,
just
for
thinking,
this
madam,
panel.
just to share a little bit of thought
this is
and
what I want to
keep
share
the
with
other
the
youngsters
Position, not a high
inspired.
position.
Without
Yes,
naming the
madam.
case, when I was
I was
traveling
just
in one
thinking, madam,
particular
just to share a little bit of thought
airways,
and keep the
maybe
other
that is not to be
youngsters
revealed,
inspired.
there was an
Without
announcement
naming
that
the
the air
case,
hostesses
when I
were
was traveling
picked up
in one
by the
particular
owner of that
airways,
they are
maybe that
handpicked.
is not to be
Air
reversed. There
hostesses
was an
were
announcement
handpicked.
Yes,
that
we
the
all know
airways
it is
I
the
was
English
just
were
sitting
picked up
quietly.
by the owner
That
of that
has
air.
somewhere it pricked
Airways.
my
They are
sense.
handpicked.
Then
Air
I was the
hostesses
person
were
who was
handpicked.
Yes, we all
prosecuted.
know it is
I
English,
was just
madam.
sitting
And the
quietly.
same
person I
that
had
has
prosecuted,
somewhere
and we were
pricked
successful
my
in the
sense.
expedition also.
Then I
And the
was
same
the
case,
person
the
who was
so-called
prosecuted.
jewelry model and
Yes,
everything.
madam. And the
I used to
same
see in
person
the
I have
Lajpat Nagar while
prosecuted,
coming to
and we were
office,
successful
that
in the
type of
expedition
diamond
also.
jewelry and
And
all.
the same
So
case,
it
the
is not that
so-called
jewelry and the
jewelry
women
model
and all.
and everything.
I had the
I
occasion
used
to
to
go
see
to
in
the
the Lajpat
UK
Nagar while
and
coming
face
to
the
office,
courts as a
that
woman
type of
director
diamond jewelry
prosecution,
and all.
and we
So
are
it is
successful
not
in the
that jewelry
expedition
and the
request
women
also.
and all.
So
I
we are
had the
already
occasion to
empowered,
go to
madam,
the
but
UK
I wish
and
that
face
more
the
women
court
should be
as a
empowered.
woman
That
director
is
prosecution,
the
and we are successful in the
yes,
expedition
yes.
request also.
More women
So
like
we are
this.
already empowered, madam,
So
but
that
I
made me
wish
to
that
talk
more
like
women
this
should
to
be
express
empowered.
my feelings,
That
and
is
I
the
wish
thing.
everyone to have such an opportunity.
More
More
women
women like this.
So that made me to talk like this to express my feelings, and I wish everyone to have such an opportunity.
Why only one?
Thank you.
Why only Chief Justice and two acting Chief Justices in the High Court in its entire history? Why only one?
Thank
Why
you.
only one Chief Justice and two acting Chief Justices? Chief Justice and one in Calcutta High Court. Acting Chief Justice of Delhi High Court. Why?
Thank
Why
you.
only one Chief Justice and one acting Chief Justice of Delhi High Court? Why? Yes?
No, ma'am. Basically, we are running short of time, and I would like to thank you for your meaningful insight on the topic and the way forward. What I am gathering from your speech, I would like to thank you for equality, meaningful insight on the topic and the way forward. Mandate. It should not be in the I am gathering from. It should be in reality. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much, Honorable Justice and the Indira Banerjee constitutional mandate for your meaningful insight on the topic. It should be in reality. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much, Honorable Justice Indira Banerjee, for your meaningful insight on the topic.
Close to my heart.
So,
Thank you.
may I request to Sri Indivar Pandey, Secretary, Ministry of Women and Child Development, to express their views on the subject. Please, sir. So, may I request to Sri Indivar Pandey, Secretary, Ministry of Women and Child Development, to express their views on the subject.
After hearing
Please, sir.
detailed, very eloquently
fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen.
explanation of the constitutional
In fact,
provisions and
after hearing it
governance,
detailed,
I would not be getting into that.
very
Coming to the more to the policy issues related to gender empowerment, which Justice Banerjee also talked in her speech.
I would not be
If we see that way, there are four key measures of empowerment in case of gender or women, if we call
Banerjee also
at
talked in her speech.
our level.
If you
The
see
first
that way, there are
and most
four
essential
key,
is safety and security.
measures of
Unless you
empowerment
can
in,
assure
in
safety
case
and
of gender or
security
women, if we
of
call
women,
it.
where they are free to go to any place within the
First and
city or
most
in village at
essential
any
is
point of time,
safety and
till
security.
such time,
Unless
in
you
true
can
sense, there
assure
cannot be
safety
gender
and
empowerment.
security of
Because that is
women,
the precise. I
where
mean,
they are
whatever
free to go
facility men have,
any place
where they not feel scared of
city
going to a place.
or
If women also are in the
in
same
village
position and they are not feeling
point of time.
that kind of safety is prevalent
Till
in that
such
place.
time,
So you will always feel that in the women in that
there
area
cannot
or
be
that
gender empowerment.
area
Because
are
that is
truly
the
important
precise-
as
I
far
mean,
as safety
whatever
is concerned.
facility men have,
You can see the
where
difference
they not
between the
feel,
cities also for
they
that
not
matter.
feel
You
scared
see
of
the
going to a
nightlife
place.
of
If
Mumbai
women
and
also are
nightlife
in
of
the same
Delhi.
position
I'll
and
not
they are
go
not
beyond
feeling
that,
that
but you all
that
know
kind of
what
safety
is the
prevalent
difference
in
in
that
the
place. So you'll
level,
always
the
feel
way
that
people travel in Mumbai
women
and the
in
way
that
people
area or
travel
that
in Delhi. So
area
for that, some
are
of the
truly
essential
important
things are
as far
you
as
should have a
safety
very
is
good
concerned.
prompt police response.
You can
for
see
that.
the difference between the
You
cities
should have
also
a
for that
helpline
matter.
which
You
is
see the
functional
nightlife of Mumbai and
with the
nightlife
least
of Delhi.
possible
I'll not
response
go
time.
beyond, but you know what
And,
is the difference in the level, the way
also,
people
in
travel
case
in
there is
Mumbai
some
and the way
problem, where
people
to go?
travel in Delhi. So for that,
So
some of
these
the
were some of the
essential
things
are you
which
should have a
were
very good
discussed in
prompt
detail post
police
Nirbhaya.
response for that.
And
You should have
we
a
are
helpline
happy
which
to
is
say that there are a lot of
functional
changes which have come
with the
around in
least
last few
possible
years.
response time.
particularly the emergency helpline, which has
Also,
handled more than
in case
22
there is some
crores.
problem, where to go?
The 112 helpline has handled more than
these were
112
some of the
crores,
things
and the
which
response
were
of police
discussed in
varies
detail
from
post
20
Nirbhaya.
minutes to, in some states,
And
5 minutes.
we are
If you have
happy
that
to say
kind
that
of
there is a lot of
response, it
changes
works.
which have come around in last few years.
We also had large
Particularly
number of
the
helplines. If you see,
emergency
there's a
helpline,
for
which
child,
has
there's a
handled more than
helpline for
22
women, there's a
crores.
helpline, emergency
The 112
helpline.
helpline has handled more
So,
than 112 crores.
Honorable
and the
PM has
response
been
of police
talking of
varies
like
from
all
20
other
minutes to
countries,
in
if you
some
say they
states
have a
to
single
5
helpline.
minutes.
So why
If you
not
have
merge
that
it?
kind of response?
We are happy to tell you that within last 6
We
months
also
we have
had
been able to
large
just
number
do
of
that.
helplines. If you see, there's a
As far as
helpline for
child
child,
helpline
there's a helpline
1098
for
is
women,
concerned,
there's
it
a
is
helpline,
totally integrated
emergency
with
helpline.
emergency helpline 112.
So,
So if
Honorable
a child
PM
calls
has
at
been talking of, like,
1098,
all
it's
other
emergency
countries,
response.
they
With
have
one
single
switch, the call
helpline.
goes to
So why not
112,
merge it?
so that police can also
We are
intervene.
happy to tell you
But
that
if he
within
needs,
last
he or
6
she
months we
needs
have been
some
able to
support
just do
for,
that.
say, educational
As far as child helpline,
information, or
109
where do I get
is concerned,
scholarship
it is
and those kind of
totally
things,
integrated
then
with
the
emergency helpline
back end of the child helpline will
So
give
if a
those
child
kind of
calls at
guidances and other
1098, it's emergency response. With one switch, the call goes to 112, so that police can also intervene. But if he needs,
for
he or
29
she needs
states,
some support
and we are
for,
hopeful
say,
that within next
educational,
information,
one
1 month,
or
hopefully
where do
by
I get
31st
scholarship
December,
and
we'll
those
be
kind
able
of
to do
things.
it. For
Then
the
the
181,
back
which is
end
the
of the
women
child
helpline
helpline will
also.
give those kind of
So
guidances
whether
and
by
other
mistake you
things.
dial 181 or 112, both the facilities are available from both the sides. You want any legal assistance,
For
it will go to the
29
women helpline
and
back
we are
end.
hopeful that
You want
within next
emergency helpline, it will go to the
1 month,
112.
hopefully by 30.
Over a period of time, hopefully within next 1 to 2 years, we'll be able to totally eliminate the 181 number or 112
whether by
number.
mistake you
Depending
dial
on whatever is
181
the
or 112,
requirement,
both the
there
facilities
will
are
be a
available
single
from both the
helpline
sides.
and you go to that
You want any
particular
legal
helpline.
assistance, it will go to the women helpline back
One of
end.
the biggest
You want emergency helpline, it will go to the
enabling
112.
factors, I would
Over a
say, for
period of
women,
time,
the
hopefully
last
within
few
next 1
years
to
have
2
been
years, we'll
the
be able to totally
toilets
eliminate the 181
in
number
public
or
places
112
and
number.
homes.
Depending on whatever
I
is
mean,
the
I come from a
requirement,
rural area.
there
I
will
can
be a
tell you
single
what was the
helpline
situation
and you
when
go
I
to
was a
that
child and what is the
helpline.
situation today.
One
One of the biggest benefits we have seen, there are
enabling
clear
factors,
studies
I would
which
say, for
reflect that
women in the last few years
post
have
the
been
toilet revolution, I will call,
toilets in public places and
the
homes.
crimes against women
I mean,
have
I come
practically
from a
come
rural
down
area.
in those
I
areas.
can
This
tell you
is a
what
fact
was
of
the
life. This
situation
is
when
all
I was a
recorded
child and what
evidence
is the
of that.
situation
So
today.
that
One of the
makes a
biggest
big difference.
benefits we have seen,
And you
there
can
are
understand,
clear-cut
if
studies
say,
that reflect
I have
that
seen in my
post the
younger
toilet
days,
revolution,
I
I
mean,
will call,
if a lady is suffering from
crimes
diarrhea or
against
something,
women have drastically
most
come
of the-
down
I
in
mean,
those areas. This is a fact
we
of
come
life.
from a
This is
family
all
where having a
recorded
toilet
evidence of
inside the
that.
house
So
was
that-
supposed to be inauspicious.
That makes a
So there's
big
no way
difference.
that you can make
And
it.
you
In
can
fact,
understand,
when in our
if
home
say,
in village,
I
we
have
were the
seen
first to make it
in my younger days, I mean,
and
if a
as if we'll be
lady
thrown out of
suffering
our
for,
caste
from
because of that
diarrhea or
particular
something,
thing. How can you have
most of the-
a
I mean,
toilet within your
we
house?
come from a family where having a
So you can
toilet
see we
inside
have
the
seen
house was
the
supposed to be
country
inauspicious.
changing
So
drastically
there's
in
no way
last
that you
few
can
years.
make
I
it.
mean,
In
last
fact,
in
when
one generation,
in
I
our
would say,
home in
which
village,
probably
we were the first to
younger
make the
generation
toilets
here
in
would
the
not
compound.
recall. But
And
this has
as
made
if
a
we'll be
tremendous
thrown out of
change,
our
and
caste
we are
because of that
thankful that
particular
government has
thing. How
taken
can you
place. Today
have
you
a
see
toilet
in schools
within your house?
everywhere you have the toilet.
you can see
all the
we have
girls in
seen
school.
the
Because of
country
that, you
changing
see now
drastically in
enrollment of
last
women
few years.
in
I mean, last-
education
in one
up
generation,
to
I
higher
would say, which
education,
probably the
girls are
younger
outnumbering
generation here
women.
would not
This is
recall.
the first time.
But this
Last
has
2
made a
years,
tremendous
for the
change,
first 2
and
years,
we are
when
thankful
in
that
the higher
government has
education
taken place.
also
Today
there were
you
more girls
see
than
in
boys.
schools
This is a
everywhere
big
you have
achievement
the
for a country
toilet.
of India's
All the
size.
girls in school. Because of that, you see
Another
now
thing, sir,
enrollment of
menstrual
women
hygiene,
in
it was
education
never talked
up to
of.
higher
It was a
education,
taboo. Even
girls are
mothers
outnumbering
had
the
difficulty talking
This is the
about
first
this
time.
to
Last 2 years,
their
for the
daughters.
first 2 years,
It's something which has
when
been
in the higher
mainstreamed,
education
and
also
what all
there were
has
more
to be
girls
done
than
so that they don't
This is a
suffer
big
in that
achievement for a
period.
country of
That
India's
has come
size.
into mainstream, because of which there are interventions.
Another
You
thing,
get
sir, menstrual hygiene.
temples at
It
a
was
much
never
cheaper
talked
rate,
of.
even at
It was
1
a
rupee.
taboo. Even
bag
mothers
you
had
get now,
difficulty talking
and
about
that
this
has
to
really
the
empowered
their
this
daughters.
thing. Otherwise,
It's something
people used
which
to
has
count
been
that girl has
mainstreamed,
not come
and
on
what
the
all has to be
period.
done so that
So I mean,
they don't
you can
suffer in
understand
that
what
period.
kind of talks.
That
used to
has
go
come
on.
into mainstream
These
because of
were
this.
some
There
of
are
the key
interventions,
things I
you get
think which have made changes
taboos at your much
possible,
cheaper
which
rate, even at 1
enabled
rupee
women,
a
younger
bag
girls
you get
to
now,
come out
and
more
that
and
has
more in
really
number.
empowered
Now,
this thing.
you see,
Otherwise,
when
people
girls
used to
come
count
into
that girl
education,
has not come on
automatically,
this
automatically
period.
what happens?
So, I mean,
your
you can
child
understand
marriage
what
rates
kind of
will go
talks
down.
used to go on.
your
These were some of the
participation in
key things
labor
I
force
think
will fall
which have
down.
made
If you see from
changes
2004
possible,
onwards
which
and
have
till
enabled
last
women,
2 years,
younger girls,
the
to come out
female
more and more
labor
in number.
participation rate
Now,
was
you see, when
consistently
girls
coming down.
come in
It was a
education,
U curve. It was coming down
automatically
like
what
this.
happens? Your child
For
marriage
men, it
rate
will be
will go down.
77%,
Your
74% plus.
participation in labor force will fall down. If you see from 2004 onwards and
the
till
last 2 years, it has
2
moved
years,
up by 4%.
the
Because the girls who were
labor
earlier working in
participation
fields,
rate
now
was
they are
consistently
getting
coming down.
educated.
It was a
And once
U
they are
curve.
coming
It
to
was
the
coming
job
down
market
like this.
only after they have been educated.
For men,
So
it
that
will be
has made a
77%,
change. Now that we have
70%
crossed the
plus,
trough
for
of the
women it
youth
was around
and we are moving up.
20%,
So you'll be seeing more and more women
In the
coming
last
in
2 years, it has moved up by 4%.
services,
Because the
in
girls
politics and all other
who were
spheres.
earlier working in fields, now they are
As far as
getting
political
educated,
and social
and
empowerment
once they are
goes,
coming to the job
I mean,
market only after they have been
you have seen when
So
the
that has
93rd
made
and
a change.
94th amendments.
Now that
took
we have
place,
crossed the
after
trough
that,
of the youth
you see
and we are moving up.
46%
So you'll
of
be
our
seeing
public
more and more
representative in
women
local
coming in
government
the
are women,
services,
which is a big
in
achievement.
politics,
If you
in
see
all
the
other
numbers,
spheres.
it's almost proportionate. Even though reservation
As far
is
as
just
political and
33%,
social empowerment
but 46% of
I
the
mean,
public representatives at that
you have
level
seen
are.
when the 93rd and 94th
We had this
amendments
concept
took
of
place.
Pradhan
After
Pati
that,
and those kind
you
of
see,
things.
46%
There are
of our
issues.
public
But
representatives in local
Madam would know, I was
government
district
Which is a
magistrate in
big
a
achievement.
district
If you
called
see the
Kuchbihar
numbers,
in
it's
West
almost
Bengal. In
proportionate.
fact,
Even
she
though
was talking of
reservation
the
is just 33%. But
that
46%
chicken snack.
of
I
the
was a
public
CEO of the
representatives
place
at
that
that
was
level
mentioning
are.
as SDU Islampur, which is
We had
exactly
this
the place
concept of
that all these
Pradhan
burglaries
Pati and
used to
those
take
kind of
place.
things. Yes, there
So
are
there,
issues. But Madam would know, I
you see,
was
even,
district magistrate in
I was talking
a
about
district called Kuchbihar in West Bengal. In fact, she was talking of the
political. So we had a Jila Parishad chairman who was an Anganwadi worker.
man was mentioning. I was SDU
Can you
Islampur,
imagine?
which is exactly
Jila
the place
Parishad
where all these
chairman,
burglaries used to
Anganwadi
take
worker
place.
being Jila Parishad
So
chairman.
there,
And people used to say, "अरे आप इसको
you
तो
see,
आप ऐसे ही चला
even,
देंगे कोई ऐसे."
I was
मतलब there are
talking
all
about
kinds of people. But when I started working with her, I found her to
So we
be
had a
so
Jila Parishad chairman
grounded
who was
and
an Anganwadi
such
worker.
good idea about
Can
how
you
to
imagine a
move schemes
Jila Parishad
forward.
chairman,
That I used to
Anganwadi
take her
worker,
advice
who
to
was
how to take
chairman.
this forward.
And
that
people used to
she
say,
turned
"अरे
out
आप
to be
इसको
one
तो
of
आप
the
ऐसे ही
best
चला
Jila
देंगे
Parishad
कोई ऐसे."
chairman
मतलब there are
for a
all kinds
period
of
of time.
people. But
And
when I
she
started
still talks to
working
me
with
even
her,
after
I found
such
her
a long
to be
time.
so
But you see,
grounded and
it's a question of
good,
giving the opportunity.
idea about how
And
to
once you give
move
the
the
opportunity,
things
people
forward.
will do well.
That I used to
So,
take her
Abhi,
advice to
what
how
was
to
happening
take
in a
this
way
forward.
is
that she turned
you
out to be
deprive,
one of the
you,
best
I
Jila
mean,
Parishad
don't
chairman
allow the
over a
children
period
to
of
take
time.
their education
And
forward.
she still talks
And
to
then
me even
automatically
after
you
such a
get
long
them
time.
married off at a
But
younger
you
age.
see,
You
it's a
marry
question
off a
of
girl
giving the
at a younger
opportunity.
age, what will
And once
happen?
you give
She'll
the
have a child
opportunity,
at
she
an
will do
early
well.
age. It will
So,
be
Abhi,
without doubt
what was
either
happening in a way
stillbirth
is
or the child will be under.
you deprive
Most of the
you-
cases you will see
I mean,
this is the problem
don't allow
with
the
country
children
is
to
facing.
take
But you
their
see
education
NFHS
forward.
data.
And then automatically you get them married off at a
wherever
younger
the
age.
women of the
You marry
family
off a
is
girl at a
educated,
younger age,
children
what will
are doing
happen?
better
She'll have a
both in
child
health
at
and
early
nutrition
age.
and
It
also
will be
education.
without doubt
So that
either
your next
stillbirth
generation
or
is
the
improving
child will be
because
underweight.
more
In
and
most
more
of the
women
cases
are
you will see
educated
this is the
and
problem
they are
that the
taking
country is
care.
facing.
You give
But you
X
see,
amount of
NFHS
money to
data.
women, they will spend it on their children's health and
wherever the
education.
women of the
Whereas
family
men
is
will use it
educated,
for some other
children are
purposes.
doing better.
So you
both
see
in
the
health
change,
and
the way
nutrition
good,
and
bad,
also education.
whatever we may call
So
it,
that
but the kind
your
of
next
this,
generation is improving
a certain
because
amount
more
is
and
being
more
given
women
to
are
women
educated
per month
and
in
they
many
are
of the
taking care.
states. And which
You
has
give
become
X
the
amount of
latest,
money to women,
thing in
they will
almost
spend
all the
it on
states.
their children's
This
health
has
and
helped them
education.
in a big
Whereas
way.
men
Kind
will
of-
use it for
and
some
even
other
the rural
purposes.
women
So you
who
see the change,
don't have
the way
much
good, bad,
avenues, they may
whatever
not be
we may
that
call it,
educated
but
and
the
all that,
kind
but
of
even
this
this small amount of
a certain amount
1,500
is being
rupees a
given
month
to
or
women
1,000
per
rupees a
month
month
in
gives
many of
them
the
some
states.
kind of
And it has become the
independence and
latest thing
economic
in
empowerment,
almost all the
whether
states.
we agree or not.
This
It's
has helped them
absolutely
in
important.
a big way. The kind of
And when
even
that
the rural
economic
women
empowerment is
who
there,
don't
then
have
they,
much
they can
avenues,
discuss
may
with
not
their
be that educated
counterpart
and all
about
that, but even
the
just a small
things like
amount of 1,500 rupees
like,
a month or
I mean,
1,000 rupees
major
a month
decisions.
gives
They
them
become a
some
partner
kind
in
of
major
independence
decisions.
and empowerment.
Otherwise, what she is
economic
treated only as
empowerment,
a
whether we
person
agree
who
or
will
not,
cook,
it's
will do this,
absolutely
that.
important.
But this kind of
And when that economic
education
empowerment is
plus
there,
some kind of
then
economic
they can
empowerment
discuss with their
is really
counterpart about
improving
the
the things and
things
improving
like,
at a very rapid pace. We'll
like,
see the
I mean,
changes
major
coming.
decisions. They become a partner in major
Reservation in parliament
Otherwise, what
again
she
is going
that
to
only
use
as a person who will cook, will
in
do
the
this,
parliament
but
after
this
some
kind
time,
of
and that will reflect in our
education
changes in
plus
our
some
policies
kind of
in health,
economic
nutrition,
empowerment
education,
is
all these
really
sectors
improving
which
the
are, which
things
are
and
not
improving at a
that
very
much of a
rapid
priority
pace.
items
We'll
at
see the
times.
changes will
Because
coming,
if you see,
this
everybody is very happy working
Reservation in
sectors
parliament,
like
again, is going to
infrastructures,
use
road, rail, airways,
voice
and all that.
in the
But these
parliament,
kind of social
after
sectors
some time,
somehow
and that will reflect
officers
in
are
our
also not willing,
changes
and
in our
at times
policies
it
in
doesn't
health,
get the
nutrition,
priority which is
education.
required
All
from
these
the government.
sectors
But these
which
things
are
are
not
now because of
that
the
much of a priority
tax
items actions have been taken in the last few years that
everybody
they are
is
very
coming
happy
to the
working in
fore.
sectors like
And we are reaping the- we have started
road,
reaping the
rail,
benefits in
airways
the
and all that.
environment area.
But these kind of social
One of the
sectors
areas I
somehow
mentioned is particularly
officers are
sexual
also not
harassment
willing, and at
false claim.
times it doesn't get the priority which is
Honorable
required
Supreme
from the
Court
law.
has
But
also
these
been
things
very
are now
active in
because
this
of the
regard, and they keep giving
actions have been
directions.
taken in the last few
I'll tell
years
you
that
one or
they are
two
coming to
interesting
the
things in
fore,
this.
and we have started reaping
Whereas the
benefits
government
in
is
the
concerned,
empowerment.
more or less
One of the
systems
areas
are
I
very well
mentioned is
laid out,
particularly
and we have
sexual
ensured from
harassment
our
of
ministry that every organization has a
Honorable Supreme Court has
internal
also been
complaints
very
committee.
active in this regard, and they keep giving
But
directions.
when you go to private,
I'll tell you
there are
one or two
ICCs
interesting things
everywhere,
in this.
even in well organized this thing.
Whereas
But
the
what
government
happens-
is concerned, more or less the systems are very well laid out.
complaints
and we
which
have
we get.
ensured from our ministry that every
You
organization
complain to the
has a,
ICC
internal
After
complaints committee.
sometime you will find
But
that
when you go to
particular lady
private,
has been on some
there
ground
are
or other
ICCs
with
everywhere,
3 months
even
salary
in
has
well
been
organized this thing.
removed from service.
But what happens? These are on record.
A worst case we have seen in one of the top
complaints which we get.
corporates of country.
You complain to
The ICC chairman,
after
after she
sometime,
gave a decision
you will find
in
that
favor
that
of an employee
particular
who had
lady
complained
in some
for
round
a
or other
sexual harassment
with 3
testing,
months salary has been
she was removed from
removed
service
from
within 6 months of the thing. They said कि हमारी तो policy
a
it
worst
has nothing
case
to
we
do
have
with
seen
ICC.
in one of the
This was
top
because
corporates of
she was working.
country. The ICC chairman,
So
after she gave
these
a
are the
decision
things now,
in favor
and
of an employee who
these
had
are the things
complained
now
for a
probably we'll
sexual
have to
harassment testing.
take a look at
She
the
was
SH
removed
Act,
from
how to
service
take care
within
of this. We
6
we
months
have
of
to have some
They said
kind of
कि हमारी
appellate
policy,
authority
it has nothing to
because
do
right
with
now the
ICC.
appeal goes to tribunal. Tribunal takes a lot of time. So we'll have to make sure that the appeal in such cases goes
These are
to a
the
body
things
like
now, and
you have
these are the
district
things
magistrates
now
having the
probably
local
we'll have
committees in
to
the
take a look at
if
the
we can
SH
have
Act,
that
how to
kind of
take care
system,
this.
then
We
the
have to have
whole
some
thing
kind of
changes.
appellate authority.
Then at least they will
Because right
also
now
be
the
scared
appeal
that there
goes
is
to
another
tribunal.
neutral
Tribunal
body
takes a lot of
who can
time.
hear appeals
So
against
we'll have to
these kind
make
of
sure that
decisions.
the
This
appeal
is
in such
again
cases goes
one
to
of
a
the
body
important
like,
things
you have,
we need to
district magistrates
mention.
having the local committees in the-
Victim
If
compensation
we can
from
have that kind
ma'am
of
talked
system,
about DLSA
then the
funds
whole
and
thing
this.
changes. Then at least they will also be
Probably
scared there is another
I'll
neutral
request
body who can hear appeals
Nalsa
against
as and when
these kind of decisions.
we meet
This is again
on the matter
one of the
that
important things
we need to
we need to
simplify the
mention.
system. It takes lot of
victim
time for a
compensation
victim
from,
to get
ma'am
compensation
talked
from
about
DLSA.
DLSA
Somehow the
funds
whole
and
system has not been thought through from the perspective of the victim. And unless we
Nalsa
put
as
ourselves
and
in
when,
that place, it will
we
not be
need,
possible
on the
to
matter
realize what are the
that
difficulties.
we need to
We have lot of
simplify the
NGOs who come and
system.
tell
It
us
takes
what is
lot
the
of
problem
time
with
for a
victim
victim to
compensation,
get
and the real
compensation from
victims
DLSA.
are
Somehow
suffering,
the
they are
whole
not getting
system
it on time.
has
So
not
this was
been
one of
thought
the
through from the
key
perspective of the
areas.
victim.
For
And unless we put ourselves
next few
in
years,
that
I'll mention
place,
2-3
it will not be
points.
possible
One
to
which we need
realize
to
what are the
act, and we are acting on them
We
very
have lot of NGOs
in a
who
very
come and tell
proactive
us what
way.
is the problem in victim
One is
compensation, and
gender
because
budgeting.
victims are suffering, they are not
What
getting
happens
it on
कि
time. So this was
you
one of the key areas.
say a certain amount in
For
the
the
budget, and
next few years, I'll
whether
mention
this
2-3
is earmarked
points.
for
One,
women.
which
It's not
we need
about
to
women.
act, and we are
It's
acting
what
on them
portion
very
is actually
in a very
helping the
proactive
women.
way.
It may be a generic item
one
in
is
your budget,
gender
but
budgeting.
if it is
What happens is,
helping 50%, then 50% can be earmarked
say
of
a
the
certain
general.
amount
Otherwise,
in
if
the
you
budget
see our
and,
numbers, they look very abysmal
whether this
in
is earmarked for
percentage
women.
terms.
It's not about
But they are
women.
not. So we are
It's
working
what
with the
portion
ministry
is
to
actually
give the
helping the
real
women. It may be a generic
gender
item
budget
in your
numbers
budget,
and ministries to report it. Because then they start looking at their
50%
items of work from the
earmarked
gender
of the gender.
perspective.
Otherwise,
This is
if you
something
see
very
our
important
numbers,
which
they look
needs to
very
be done.
abysmal in
Second
percentage
issue is
terms.
about
But
care
they are
economy.
not. So we are working with
Now,
the ministries to give
let
the
me tell you
real,
one fact about Indian men.
gender
They work
based
for only
numbers
34
and
minutes in a
ministries
day
to report
in
it.
their homes,
because then they start
which is
looking at their
second
items
lowest
of work from
in
the gender
Southeast
perspective.
Asia,
This
and
is something
Southeast
very
Asia is
important
also
which
one of the
needs
worst
to be done.
performers.
Second
So Indian men,
issue
you
is
can
about
say
care
in the
economy.
major economy, we are
Now,
at bottom in terms
let
of
me tell you one fact
helping
about
out
Indian men.
the women of
They
the
work
family.
for only 34 minutes in
Whereas
a day in
on
their
an
home,
average,
which is
lady,
lowest
whether
in,
she is working or not
Southeast Asia,
working,
and
she
Southeast
is
Asia
working
is
for
also one of
6
the
to
worst
8 times more than what a
So
man
Indian
is.
men, you can say in the
So that
major
is something
economy, we are
probably
at
we
bottom
men have
in
to be
terms of
told, and we
helping
should
out
appreciate them
the
for
women
that.
of the family. If you can't at least help, at least realize what kind of work they are putting it at
she's
home.
working or not working.
I am very proud of telling that COVID was an eye opener, and I have no
So that is
doubt
something
or
probably
hesitation
we
in
men
accepting.
have to be told.
We got it. I mean, that way we had a closure
If
only
you
for
can't
7 or
at
10
least
days.
help,
We
at
started
least
working, going to
realize
office
what
after
kind
that.
of work
In those 7,
they are
10 days
putting
and
it at
later on,
home.
when we were working,
I am very proud of
I mean,
telling
when
that
there were
COVID
no
was an
people to
eye-opener
work at
and I have
home,
no
so my only competence was
doubt
probably
or
cleaning and
hesitation in
washing
accepting.
utensils. then I realized how
that way
difficult
we
the
had a
job
closure only for
at
7 or
home
10
is
days.
and
We
how much
started
time
working,
it
going to
takes to
office after that.
actually run the
In
household.
those 7-10 days
It's
when
no
we
less
were,
than any
when we were
top
I mean,
level
when
manager's
there were
job
no
if you're
people
running
to
your
work at
household.
home. So my
And
only competence
I think
was
it's
probably
time that
cleaning
men
and
owned
washing
up
utensils.
and recognized
Then
the
I realized
contribution
how
of women
difficult the
in running the
job
home, because
at home
care
is
economy,
and how much time
if it
it
doesn't
takes to
function well,
actually
you have
run
it.
the household.
Care
No
economy
less
was
than
my
any,
second point in policy related thing.
top level manager's job.
There are two aspects. And today,
I think it's
90%
time
of the
that men
caregiver
owned
are
up
women.
and recognize
You
the
have
contribution of women
families
in
which
running
are
the home
more
because
nuclear
care
now.
economy.
You
if
have
it doesn't function
everywhere
well,
you have elderly people, they need to be taken
care
care
economy
of.
was my
And
second
if you have
point
young
in
children, they need to
policy-related
be
things.
taken. So you need
There are two
support.
aspects.
What happens
Today,
in such case, as
90%
ma'am
of the
talked about,
caregiver
most of the
are
time
women.
it is women we have to
You have
sacrifice their career.
families which are more nuclear
Probably
now.
it's time we realize
You
that
have
this is
everywhere
a
you have elderly people
joint
who need
work.
to be taken
And why
care of.
should this
And if you have young
maternity
children,
leave
they
or
need to-
care leave should only
So
be
you
given
need
to women?
support.
Why not to men?
What
Probably it
happens
should be
in such case, as
50-50
ma'am talked
shared,
about,
so
most
that
of the
they
time
should
it
also
is women
realize
we
how
have to
difficult it is
sacrifice
to
their
take care of a
career at
child.
that.
You handle a 2-year
Probably
child
it's
for
time
one
we
day
realize
and
that
then you realize
this
what
is a
great work your wife is doing in
joint
that
work.
regard.
And why
So
should
these
this,
are some of the
maternity
things.
leave or
Care
care
economy,
leave should only
we
be
have
given
to
to
create
women,
an
why not to men?
infrastructure system
Probably
so
it
that
should be
people,
50-50
even the lowest
shared
state of
so that
people,
they
they
should
have
also
someone to
realize
look
how
after the
difficult
child.
it is to take
Otherwise,
care of
there
a
is no
child.
support as
You
of
handle
now.
a 2-year child for
You see
one
what
day,
happens.
and then
Your
you
mate
realize
is young.
what
If she
great
doesn't
work
come
your
for
wife is
a
doing
day,
in
who
that.
looks after her child?
These
They
are,
also have a
some
nuclear
of the
family.
things. Care
So this
economy,
problem is
we have
both
to
at
create
the
an
lowest
infrastructure
strata and also
system
at the highest
so that
strata.
people,
If
even
she
the
doesn't
lowest
come,
strata
you
of
also
people,
you
they
also
have
can't go
someone
to
to look
office
after
on
the
that day.
child.
So care
Otherwise, there
economy
is
is
no
something
support
we
as
have to
of
put
now.
in place systems. We
You
are
see
very
what
much
happens. Your mate is young. If she
aware
doesn't
of
come
these
for
things.
a day, who looks after
Another
her child? They also
third
have a
policy
nuclear
point,
family.
probably very
So this
important
problem
again, is climate
both at
change.
the lowest
Now,
strata
climate
and also
change,
at
if
the
you
highest
see,
strata.
may
If
not
she
be
doesn't
that much
come,
in the
you
urban
also-
areas, but
you
in the
also
rural
can't go to
areas,
office on that.
women are the
So care
worst
economy is
sufferers of
something
that.
we have to put in place
Because
systems. We are very
anyway,
much,
they are the
aware of these
weakest
things.
strata
Another
there. And
third
if
policy point probably
climatically
very
something
important
happens,
again
what
is
happens?
climate change.
Husbands do
Now,
migrate
climate
in
change,
such
if you
case,
see,
or those
may
who
not
can
be that
earn,
much in the urban areas, but
they
in the rural
migrate out.
areas,
Or if the
women
family
are the
migrates,
worst
then the
sufferers
children
of that.
education and nutrition
Because
goes for
anyway,
ethics.
they are the
So these are the issues, how to
weakest,
handle these things, how to
strata there.
mitigate the climate
And if
effect on women.
climatically something
and,
happens, what happens?
that-
Husbands
So
do
these were the
migrate in such
three
case,
policy
or
themes
those
which
who
have
can
to be
they
thought
migrate
of
out.
and
Or
acted
if the
upon
family
very quickly in
migrates,
the
then
coming
the children
years.
education and
Otherwise, we'll
nutrition
not
goes
be
for
able to
ethics.
take full
So
potential
these are
of
the
women
issues,
who are
how to handle
coming
these
in the
things,
job
how to
market,
mitigate the
women
climate
who are well
effect on
educated,
women
and what
So
is
these were the
happening in
three
corporate
policy
sectors.
themes which
Many
have
of
to
the
be
young ladies who are working
thought of
there
and acted upon very quickly in the
will not
coming
like to have a
years.
child.
Otherwise,
Because
we'll
if
not
they
be
have a
able to
child,
take full potential
automatically
of
compared to
women
their
who are,
male colleagues in
coming
the
in
same
job market,
service or
women who are
same
well
company,
educated.
they'll go back
And,
one ladder. And
what
if it is two
happening in
child means you are
corporate
two
sectors,
step below your colleague.
many
at
of
that.
the young ladies
And
who are
not
working
many
there
people, corporates also
will
don't
not
have
like to
any
have a child,
hesitation in doing
because
that.
if they have a
We
child,
are coming out with the gender parity
automatically
index
compared to
for
their
the
male colleagues in the
corporates also
same,
in the coming days.
service or
Hopefully we
same
should be out
company,
within
they'll
2
go
to 3
back one
months.
ladder.
So
And if it is
that
two
also
child
needs
means
to
you
be
are two
taken
step
care of,
below your
because they
colleague
also
in
need to be
And
sensitized that
not many people,
finally the
corporates also
workforce
don't
with the
have
aging
any
profile will
hesitation in
start
doing
limiting,
that.
and we have
We
to
are
make
coming
sure
out
that
with the
each
gender
and every
parity
one of
index
us
for the
who is
corporates
good enough
also
to
in the
contribute
coming
to
days.
economy
Hopefully we should be
comes
out
to the
within 2 to 3
workforce
months.
and joins it.
So
Thank you, sir.
that also needs to be taken care of, because they also need to be sensitized that finally the workforce
very
with
much,
the
sir,
aging profile will start
for your
limiting, and we have to
suggestion
make
as to
sure
the
that
measures
each and
that
every
have
one
been
of
taken
us
or
who
that
is
should
good
have been
enough to
taken
contribute to economy
for gender
comes to the
empowerment.
workforce
Thank you very
and
much,
joins
sir.
it. Thank you, sir.
Now, I would like to request Professor Raka Arya, Member Law Commission of India, to give
Thank
a
you very
brief
much, sir,
view on the subject.
for your
suggestions
Thank you, sir.
as
Thank
to
you
the
very
measures
much.
that have been taken
Madam
or that
Honorable
could
Miss
have been
Justice
taken
Indira Banerjee,
for gender empowerment. Thank you very much,
members
sir.
from the
Now,
Law Ministry
I would
and
like to request
Ministry for
Professor
Women and
Raka
Child
Arya,
Development
Member Law
and
Commission
other
of India,
dignitaries and
to give a
students.
brief view on
आप
the
सबको
subject. Thank you.
संविधान दिवस की बहुत बहुत
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
शुभकामनाएं।
Madam
और
Honorable Miss Justice
मैंने
Indira
संविधान
Banerjee,
इसलिए बोला क्योंकि मुझे लगता है कि वो हमारी
members from
भावनाओं
Law
को
Com-
ज़्यादा एक्सप्लेन
from
करता
the
है।
Law Ministry
Some
and
meanings
Ministry
equal.
for Women and Child
And when
Development
we are
and
talking
other
about
dignitaries and students.
Equal
आप सबको
means
संविधान दिवस की
equality of
बहुत-बहुत
all. It is not we are just talking about equality
और,
of man,
मैंने
woman
संविधान
or some
इसलिए
third
बोला
gender.
क्योंकि मुझे लगता है कि
Because
वो
what I
हमारी
have
भावनाओं
taken
को ज़्यादा
as
explain
my
करता है.
theme, I'm just
Some
explaining
meanings equal.
that what is
And when we are
the
talking about,
empowerment. Because first we have to understand
equal,
that.
equal means
Only then I think
equality of
we will
all.
be in
It
a
is not
position
we
to
are just
understand
talking about
that what we
equality
are
of
discussing
man,
here.
woman
Because
or some third
Madam
gender.
has very beautifully and
Because what
succinctly
I
had
have
put
taken
it
as
that
my
how the
theme, I'm just,
Constitution of India
explaining
has done a
that
wonderful
what
job.
is the
Here I would like to
empowerment.
add
Because
what
first
she
we
has
have
said
to
about
understand that.
the things
Only then
is
I
the
think
universal
we will be
adult
in a position
franchise
to understand
that we have
what we
honor
are
and
discussing
privilege
here.
to have
Because,
introduced at the
Madam
same
has
time
very
when
beautifully
we
and
introduced the
succinctly had put
Constitution
it
of India.
that how the
In comparison
Constitution
to
of
other
India
countries
has done a wonderful job.
who have given voting rights
Here
to
I would
women
like
very
to add
late.
what she has said
As we know
about,
that
the
voting right
things
means
is
to
the
participate
universal adult
in the
franchise
decision-making power of the
that we
state,
have honor and privilege
which
to
is a
have
supreme
introduced
power
at the same time
that was not
when
given
we
to many
introduced
women
the
in the world,
Constitution of India.
and for which they
In
fought.
comparison to other countries
And we are
who have
privileged
given voting rights
and
to
we
women
can take
very
proud
late.
and pride
As
in the
we know
fact
that voting
that
right
we
means
did
to
not
participate
fight for that.
in the decision
Our
making power of
constitution
the state,
makers were already aware
which is
of
a
the
supreme
things
power
about place
that
of a
was not
woman in
given to many
society,
women in the
their
world.
status, their dignity,
And for which they
that
fought.
they restored and
And we
established
are
from the day
privileged
one.
and we
So
can
perhaps we can take pride
and
in the fact that from the
that
day
we
one
did
we got the
not
voting
fight for
rights
that.
without
our constitution
understanding
makers were
that
already
we
aware
have been
of the
discriminated
things
against
about place
like
of a
other
woman
women in
society,
the world
their
has
status,
been.
their dignity.
So this is
that
something
they
that we have
restored
done.
and established
Now
from the day
empowerment
one.
I have made mention
So
here that
perhaps we
what
can take pride
exactly
in the
it is.
fact that
It is
from
a
the day
process
one
of
we got the
enabling
voting rights
individuals.
without
Now when I say enabling,
understanding
enabling
that,
is
we
some
have been
seem
discriminated
something
against,
seems to be a
like
second
other
effort.
women in the world.
It means it is coming
been.
from outside.
So this
It
is
is not
something
coming
that
from
we have
within.
learned. Now,
So whether
empowerment I have made
the thing
mention
that we
here, that what
just
exactly
discussed
it
when
is.
Madam was
It is a process of
concluding her
enabling
thing, when she
individuals.
has
Now, when I
made
say
a mention
enabling,
about certain things that
enabling
has
is
not
some
happened.
something
Like
seems
when
to
we
be
were
a
talking
second
about
effort.
presence of
It
women
means
in
it is coming
judiciary.
from outside. It is
Even
not
after
coming from
75
within.
years, why we
So
don't
whether
have women
the
in
thing that
judiciary
we
as many
just
as we should
discussed
have?
when Madam was
So
concluding
perhaps
her thing,
this
when she
enabling
has
part
made
is an
a mention
external
about
effort.
certain things
So we
that
have
has
to
not
make it an
happened.
internal as well.
Like when we were talking about
How can we do
presence
that?
of women
So
in
let's see
judiciary.
what we can say.
Even
That they
after
say that
75
process of
years,
enabling
why we
individuals
don't
to
have
understand the
women in
relationship
judiciary as many
between
as
their
we should
actions
have.
and outcomes, allowing
perhaps
people the power
this
to achieve
enabling
the
part
results they
is an
desire.
external effort.
Now one more
So we
thing,
have
you
to
know,
make
when
it an
I
internal
think
as well.
about the Constitution of India,
How can we do that? So let's see
something
what we can
occurs to
say.
my mind also that
They
how
say
many
the process
people
of
in
enabling
India,
individuals to understand
where the
relationship
preamble begins with the
between
word
their
"we the
actions
people"
and
know
outcomes,
about the
allowing
Constitution
people
of
the
India.
power to achieve the results they desire.
Many a time I feel as
Now,
a
one more
teacher
thing,
of law,
when I think
and
about the
I think
Constitution
that
of India,
it's my duty to make my
something
students
occurs to my
also
mind
to take
also
this
that
pledge
how
and
many
vow
people in
to go to
India
the villages and to the
where the
cities
preamble
to
begins with the
educate
word "we
people
the people"
about the
know about
Constitution
the
of India.
Constitution of India.
Because very few
Many a
know
time I
about
feel
the
as a
Constitution
teacher
of India.
law,
So when we
and
try
I
to
think
celebrate
that,
the
it's
spirit
my
of it,
duty to make my
people in
students also to
villages
take this
and
pledge
even
vow
those who are
to go to the
employees in my
villages
university,
and to the cities
I
to
don't think
educate
that they
people
are very well
about the
aware of the
Constitution of India.
Constitution. But then
Because very
this
few
duty
know
lies on our
about the
shoulder that we
Constitution of
educate
India.
them about that.
So
that
when
what
we try
does it
to
stand for.
celebrate the spirit of it,
Again now we say that
people in
empowerment
villages
is an
and even
intrinsic
those who are
motivation
employees in my
made up
university,
of four cognitions,
I don't think that they are very
meaning
well aware
competence,
of the Constitution.
self-determination and
But then,
impact.
this duty lies on
So
our
all
shoulder
this we have
that
to see when we are
educate them
talking about
that what
that
does it
whether
stand for.
this
Again
beautiful
now, we
document
say
called
that
Constitution of
empowerment
India
is an intrinsic
has successfully
motivation
been
made
able
up
to
of
deliver
four
what it
cognitions,
was meant for.
Meaning,
Like Madam has once
competence,
again
self-determination,
made a
and
reference of the
so
fundamental
all
rights.
this we have to see when we are talking
I
about
say
that
the
whether
most beautiful
this,
right is
beautiful
article or
document
most beautiful
called
article is
Constitution of
Article
India
32
has successfully
that
been able
enables
to deliver
us
what it was meant
to
for.
fight for our rights
Like Madam
if
has
they
once
have been
again,
violated.
made a reference
And when we
of
talk
the
about
fundamental
right to
rights.
life, I think it has
I
been been expanded, especially by the judicial organ,
article or
in many directions, which brings the dignity to the woman. Again, I think when I say dignity to the woman,
if they have been
can you
violated.
think of something that we take
And when
pride
we
in the
talk about
fact
right to
being
life,
mother?
I think it has been
And when you
expanded,
yourself
especially
are
by the
not
judicial organ,
been considered
in many
natural and
directions,
legal guardian of
which
your own
brings
child,
the
I
dignity
think this
to
is the
woman.
biggest,
Again, I
ignominy
think
that
when I
we
say
can
dignity
face,
to the woman,
which I think
can you
has
think
been
of something
given by the
that we
court,
take
as you all
pride
have
in the
heard
fact
about Gita Harjuni's case, in which she has
And when
been,
you
of course,
yourself
allowed
are not
to use her
being
name
considered
if she is
natural
not
and legal
staying with
guardian
the
of your
father
own
of the child.
I think
And
this is the
as
biggest,
you know, that this has
ignominy that you can
enabled
face,
so many
which
women,
I think has been given by the
who
court,
are
as you
single
have
women
heard about
and who are
Gita
parents.
Harjuni's case, in
So
which
you
she
can
has
see that
been,
what
of course,
scope
allowed
Constitution
to
has.
use her
And
name
when Article
if
32
she
is there,
staying
if we
with
are
the
aware
father
of
the
it,
child.
how we can
And
make our
as you
lives
know,
better.
that this has enabled
Again, we know that
so
when we
many
talk
women,
about 32, this
who
is
are
something
single
again,
women
Shaira
and who
Bano.
are parents.
And we can
So
say,
you can see that what
Madam has
scope
made the
Constitution
reference
has.
of
And when
another
Article
Bano,
32
right?
is there,
And
if we are aware of
Shah
it,
Bano is the one.
how we can
And
make our
Shaira
lives
Bano
better.
has triple talaq, and that was
Again, we know
maintenance
that
case.
when
We
we
know
talk
that
about
both of
32,
them, these
this is
cases have
something
been
again, Shaira Bano.
turning points
And we
as
can
far
say
as women lives
Madam
are
has
concerned.
made the reference
Because
of
that was a woman
another Bano.
very old age, a time
And
she was,
Shah
left
Bano is
by
the
her
one.
husband.
and Shaira
Nobody
Bano
could have
has
think
triple
of her,
talaq, and
but
that was
then
maintenance
Constitution
case.
came
we
to
know
her
that
rescue.
both of them,
Because
these cases have
Constitution
been,
makes a duty,
turning points, as far
like
as,
on the
women
shoulder of
rights are
everyone,
concerned.
that we all
Because
are
that was a
citizens
woman
first.
very old age, a
And
time
then
she was,
she,
left by
being a
her
citizen,
husband.
has every right
Nobody
to
could have
ask the
think
state
of
to
her,
protect
but then Constitution
her
came to
from
her
any kind of
rescue.
injustice that
Because
is being done
Constitution
to her.
makes
So
a
that's
duty,
why we can say that
lies on the shoulder
Constitution
of
of
everyone,
India is such
that
a
we
huge
all
hope
are citizens
for everyone.
first.
I'm just making a mention
And
because
then
I'll just try to
she,
avoid that
being a
particular
citizen,
part that
has every
Madam also
right
said about
to ask
women,
the
because
state to protect
generally when we talk
her
about gender,
from any kind of
I'll tell you that
injustice
whenever we
that is being
organize
done
a
to her.
program,
So that's why we can
90%
say
women
that,
are present there, 10%
Constitution of India
men
is
are
such a
present there.
huge hope
Automatically,
for everyone.
this
I'm
impression
just making a
comes
mention
that
because
it
I
is
just
meant
tried to
for
avoid that
women.
particular
It is
part
not
that
meant
Madam
for
also said
men.
about women,
But
because
I
generally
think
when we talk
isn't
about
not
gender,
complimentary
I'll tell
that
you
if we
whenever
talk about women
organize a
rights, we
program,
can't take women rights if
90%
man is
women are
not present
there,
there.
10%
So for that
men
we
are
have
present
to
there.
actually fight for
Automatically,
that.
this
No, I
impression
think if
comes
men are present
that
there,
it is meant
perhaps
for
they can
women.
understand
It is
our
not meant
predicament.
for men.
And then
But,
the
I
correction can
think
be done.
isn't
So that
not,
is why.
complimentary?
Okay, so what are the
If we talk
dimensions
about
that, of
women
course,
rights, we can't take
sir
women
has also
rights
made
if
a
man
mention
is not
about
present
that.
there.
Skill, purpose,
So for that
autonomy,
we have to
community
actually
engagement.
fight for that?
All these
No, I
facts
think
are very
if
much
men are
part of
present there,
empowerment.
perhaps they
When
can
we do
understand
it,
our
so we
predicament.
can say that, of
And
course,
then,
when I
the
educate
correction
somebody,
can be done. So
I
that
am,
is why. Okay, so
enabling
what
a
are the
person about the
dimensions
whole
that, of
thing, that
course,
what a person
Sir
stands
has also
for.
made a mention about.
What
Skill,
does it mean
purpose,
to be a
autonomy,
person?
community engagement.
And
All
as
these
we do
facts are
say
very
that when we
much
say
part of
person, it
empowerment.
does not mean
When
the
we do it,
people in
so we
higher
can say
echelons.
that, of
It is
course, when
also
I
the
educate
people at
somebody,
grassroots level.
I am,
Who,
enabling a
it
person
matters
about the
more
whole
than
thing,
us
that
because
what a
we are
person
already
stands for.
empowered people. So when we
What
talk
does
about
it mean
that, so
to
can I
be
have
a
next slide?
person? And as we
So it
do
is
say that when we
5
say
components
person,
when
it
they
does
talk
not
about.
mean the
Perhaps it is
people
something
in
that is
higher
answering the
echelons. It is
question.
also the people
Now
at
I think
grassroots
I
level.
request all of you to read it as
matters more
gender
than us because
empowerment.
we are already
So it can be a
empowered
sense
people.
of
So when we talk
self-worth.
about that, so
So as Madam was bringing third gender into picture,
it is
so perhaps
5
I think it
components
applies
when
to
they talk
everyone.
about. Perhaps it is
Their right to
something that
have
is
and to
answering the
determine
question.
choice.
Now
Their
I
right to
think
have
I
access to
request all of you
opportunities,
to,
resources.
read it as
Their right to have
gender
power to
empowerment.
control their own
So it
lives
can be
both
sense
within
of
and outside the home.
self-worth.
Their
So
ability
as
to
Madam was
influence
bringing
the
her
direction of
gender
social
into
change
pictures,
and
so perhaps
economic
I think
order
it applies to
nationally
everyone.
and internationally.
Their right to have
So a lot
and
of
to
things have been
determine
said.
choice.
CEDAW was
Their
there.
right to have access
CEDAW
to
was the one
opportunities,
that gave
resources.
opening
Their
to
right
the
to have power
justice,
to control their
to
own
bring
lives
out
both
the
within and
Vishakha
outside the
guidelines
home.
when a
The
woman
ability to
suffered once
influence
again
the direction
because of
social
speaking
change
something
and economic
which
order
was her
nationally
duty
and
to
internationally.
do, like
So
when
lot
she
of
was
things
trying
have
to
been
prevent
said.
child marriage,
CEDAW
as we
was
all are
there.
aware of.
CEDAW was the
She
one
was,
that gave
given a
opening
task to
to the
do that.
justice.
But then
To
she has
bring
suffered
out
because
the
of that.
Vishakha guidelines
No law
when a
in
woman
picture, but
suffered
then
once again
Constitution has
because
given a
of
particular
speaking
idea
something
that
which
if it is
was her
silent,
duty
then of course
to do,
judiciary
like when
can
she was
take
trying to prevent child marriage,
initiative
as we
in
all
that
are
direction.
aware
Of course,
She was,
facilitated by
given
the
a task
Constitution
to
itself.
do that.
So can
But
we see
then
the next slide,
she has
please?
suffered because of that. No law in picture, but then Constitution has given a particular idea that if it is silent, then of course judiciary can take initiative in that direction. Of course, facilitated by the Constitution itself.
Okay, so this,
can we
I
see
will
the next
just
slide, please?
say, as far as the thing is, what I am saying that Constitution has actually done. Another thing that I am trying to understand from the Constitution is, does equality means the sameness?
Can we move it?
Or does it mean difference? Because when we try to,
so
speak
this,
from
I will
man-woman
just,
perspective,
say
many a
as far as,
time we
the
fall
thing is,
victim
what
to the
I'm saying that
sameness
Constitution
logic.
has actually
It
done.
is not
Another
sameness.
thing
Women are
that I'm
different.
trying to
And
understand
if
from
I
the
include
Constitution
the
is,
third gender,
does
they
equality
are
means
also
the
different.
sameness?
So they should be
Or does it mean
treated
difference?
differently. But
Because
as
when
far
we
as
try to,
Constitution is
speak
concerned,
from
it does
man-woman
not say
perspective,
that
many a
we
time we
have
fall
to,
victim to the sameness logic.
do it at the
It is
cost
not
of
sameness.
others.
Women are
It
different.
is something
And
that
if
all
I
three have
include
their
the
own
third gender,
spaces,
they are
which
also
must be
different.
equally
So
respected.
they should be treated
So I think that is
differently,
the one
but
that
as far as
is the
Constitution is
aspect of
concerned,
empowerment
it
that we are
does not
talking
say
about.
that
Another
we
thing
have
was,
to,
since we are saying
do
that
it at the
Constitution
cost
of
of
India
others.
is a
It
dynamic
is something
living
that
document.
all three have their
I
own
think,
spaces,
yes,
which
it
must
is,
be equally
but as we all
respected.
are aware,
So I think
that
that
law
is the
is
one
very
that
much
is the
the
aspect
idea
of
and
empowerment that
reflection
we are
of
talking
social
about.
consciousness.
Another thing was,
So it
since
too has to be
we
dynamic.
are saying that
It means it has
Constitution
to
of India
change.
is
If
a
it does
dynamic
not,
living
then I
document.
think these two
I
become
think,
separate from each other.
yes, it
So
is,
to be
but
complementary,
as
I
we
think it
all
is
are
very
aware
important
that
that they
law is
both
very
should work
much
together. Only
the
then
idea
we
and
will move
reflection
in
of
a
social
direction.
consciousness.
Because when we say
So
that
it too has
construction
to
of
be dynamic.
toilets
It means
has,
it has to change. If it does
gave
not,
women
then
a
I think
sense
these
of
two become
security,
separate from each other.
and
So to
that
be
has
complementary, I think
enhanced
it is very
their
important
participation
that they
in
both should
education.
work together. Only then
So
we
again,
will
I think
move in a
that is a
direction.
big
Because when we
achievement. But
say
again,
that construction
I
of
say after
toilets
75
has,
years or some 70 plus years, we
gave
could do
women
that.
a sense
So
of
this is,
security,
the thing that if
and
society
that has
and
enhanced
constitution
their
both are in
participation in
sync,
education.
perhaps, we will move faster
So again, I
if
think
people
that
are
is a
educated
big
about
achievement.
that.
But
Because
again,
empowerment,
I
as you
say
all
after
are very well
75
aware,
years or some
it
70
has to
plus
do
years,
a lot
we
about
could do that.
education. And
So this
education is about
the thing
learning.
that if
And here we are
society
talking
and
about what kind of
constitution
learning. Any
both
kind of
are in
learning
sync,
will be, if
perhaps,
we are moving
we will
in the
move
direction
faster
of social
if
empowerment,
people
so
are
of course we
educated
will be
about
talking
that.
from that
Because
perspective.
empowerment, as you
Political,
all
as
are
sir
very
has
well
made
aware,
mention,
it
that
has to do
the
a lot
political
about
empowerment
education.
came.
And education is
Here
about
I
learning. And here we are talking about what kind of learning. Any kind of learning will be, if we are moving in the direction of social empowerment, so of course we will be talking from that perspective. Political, as sir has made mention, that the political empowerment came. Here I
from outside. Let's create a kind of social consciousness that talks about creation of
But then again, we know that things are not going in the right direction. And when we talk about level playing field, again, Madam has made mention of judiciary. I'll say about the political field is still. How many women who are member of parliament or who are political leader
But then again, we know that
have
things are
become
not going in the
that
right
particular
direction.
member
And when we
on
talk about
their
level
own.
playing
They
field,
don't have any
again, Madam has
family
made mention of
background
judiciary.
or they
I'll
have
say
not been
about
prompted
the
by
political
some.
field is still.
I think if we
How
are
many
able
women
to
who
create
are
that particular
member of
kind of
parliament
environment in
or who
society,
are political leader
because I think
have
long period
become
has gone by after
that
constitution
particular
has come into
member on
existence,
their own,
because
who
it
don't
is
have any
responsibility of all the
family
organs, be it
background,
parliament,
or they
be
have
it
not been
judiciary,
prompted by some.
that
I think if we
inculcate
are
and
able to
cultivate
create
that
that
kind of
particular kind of
confidence
environment in
in
society,
those who are
because I think
really
long period
needed,
has gone
and
by
it is
after
our duty
constitution has come
to
into
take
existence,
constitution to them
because
who
it
have
is
not been
responsibility
aware
of
of
all
it,
the organs, be it
unless and
parliament,
until
be
they are
it
educated
judiciary,
about
that,
constitution and what it
inculcate
stands
and
for.
cultivate
I
that
think this
kind of
dream
confidence
of we the
in
people will
those
not be
who
fulfilled.
are
Thank you so much.
really needed, and it is our duty to take constitution to them who have not been aware of it, unless and until they are educated
you, ma'am.
about constitution and what it stands for.
Thank you very
I
much
think this dream
for your
of we
insight
the people will not be fulfilled.
as to
Thank you so
the
much.
constitutional learning going down to the uh, last one living in village or
thank
to
you,
the
ma'am.
uneducated people. This is
Thank you very
the
much
mantra we can adopt.
for your insight
Thank you very much.
as to the
And with the permission of
constitutional
chairperson,
learning going down
since we are
to
running
the,
short of time and our next month is there in the plenary
last
hall,
one living
so
in
we would
village
like to
or
conclude
to the
the
uneducated
session.
people.
So we are seeking your
This is
permission. ma'am.
the mantra we can adopt. Thank you very much. And with the permission of chairperson, since we are running short of time and our next month is there in the plenary hall, so we would like to conclude the session. So we are seeking your permission, ma'am.
Charges है मैम को मैम को लेकर चार्जेस है मैम को मैम को लेकर
विरासत 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 विरासत
which is also called as Law Day. Basically, this day is a tribute to the architect of our Constitution, which is also called as Law Day. Basically, this day is a tribute to the architect of our Constitution,